Hello once again, everybody. Welcome to Let's Play Every Day. Tim McNiff with C. Willi, Myles, Andrew Greder, and G2. And we're here talking, we're back in Minnesota. All this winning stuff that happened Sunday night, gone. Just erased by a double shot to the nuts about 10 minutes apart last night. And the Twins did their best. I saw somebody put on Twitter this morning, they're like, feels so good for Sano. I'm like, no, he had a catchable fly ball. He ran himself into a situation that should have run the team out of the game. And he's damn lucky that they got it. So don't feel good about that. And I'm not, as you can tell.
Right.
Happy to have you guys here with me today. We got a lot of ground to cover. I just want to know from your reaction, because Ant hits that shot. Place I'm at in Minneapolis goes crazy. My reaction was just a flashback to my days of being a Vikings fan when they played Green Bay and the Vikings would score with like a minute and change left to go. And everybody go nuts. And I'd be like, Favre, too much time. And I just knew it. I knew it. So, Andy, he hits that shot. You think what?
I thought it was a great play. It was a great out of bounds play. It was a look that you wanted to have. It was the offense that you didn't see in the last couple of minutes. I think there was way too much hero ball, way too much isolation. D'Lo had some bad decisions, some bad shot selection that really cost them down the stretch. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, that's the look that you want. Yeah, obviously when you have 3 seconds left, that's way too much time when you have John Morant on the other side, who really came alive in that fourth quarter and really kind of took over that game after that, just emphatic highlight reel dunk that he had at the end of the third that really got him going. It was just kind of way too much time for him. Ant gambles and tries to get the steal on the inbounds play, a play that he himself called kind of a dumb decision. And, it came back and cost them.
So many things, G2, and I judge kind of where you are by what you have on top of your head, and I don't see the T-Wolves cap this morning. How did you take that one? And like Andy said, there was just so many questionable things down the stretch where I'm like, do we want to win this game? Are we trying to win this game?
Yeah, it felt very similar to a Vikings game. Like it did that feeling of like, something could go wrong, and it did. I guess the only saving grace I have, at least with the Ant, is hitting the big shot. Him having the balls to just be like, yo, no, I want it. And it seemed like that play was made up just for him, but then also seeing him make the young NBA player move. Let me go for the steal. And then be on the high side instead of just, playing straight up defense and letting the clock be your friend.
Right.
I don't know. We got to take it. I just think about all those teams before they get to those playoff runs, those early first round exits. They got to kind of go through these bumps and bruises. Of course, we want the wins, and this has probably been the best series out of the playoffs so far, because it just seems like it can go either way. I'm happy that they didn't fall apart in the third. So this is the game where I'm taking the small victories and the lessable, teachable moments.
Yeah.
Which was really funny too. Also, D'Lo with those couple bad shots in the hero ball. And then V8, he didn't seem to have a really good second half. Like there are a couple rebounds that he could have had that got stripped from him, and keeping, possession with us and leading over the points for
I know. We lost him.
Yeah, he froze. Willi.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys, man. You guys made great points. And I'm the same way. I mean, I think the one thing you don't want to do as a coach is, get down on a player for doing what he does best. Ant gets away with taking a lot of chances on things, and he's good at that. But that was a time last night where it's like G2 said, you got to let the clock be your friend. You get down, you get in position, and you make them work for it. Don't make it easy for them by going for the steal and then miss it. You know what I mean? You got to be 100% sure you can get in the middle of the game. That's fine. At the end of the game, it is not. Rely on your technique and the people behind you to help you out. And he took a very I'm not saying that cost them the game because it never should have came down to that. But at the end of the day, you kind of got to play smart at that. That's not the time to be a hero. The time right now is to play good, solid defense, stay in front of him, make him work for every dribble, every shot, and get your hand in his face and hope he doesn't make that shot. But he went for the steal and got stoled.
So I was going to this whole thing as, hey, they made the playoffs. That's huge. They'll learn from this. And then I'm like, they just got to get deep into a series. That'll be a win for them. And I'm not there anymore because I've just seen so many stupid things happen in this series. I'm just like, forget the 2 versus 7. I just feel like the Timberwolves are should be winning this series, or maybe it should be over by now, I even think. And I really I'm disappointed by what I've seen here. So I guess my question is this. Has this shaken your faith in Finch? I mean, there's a guy that I just thought going into this whole thing was, he may be a coach of the year candidate. And now I just feel like I've seen so many undisciplined, so many stupid things. The fact that the ball went into D'Angelo Russell's hands with 13 seconds left in the game, I'd have been like, okay, you 4, you can have the basketball and you can shoot it. D'Angelo, you cannot. It must go to somebody else on this floor. And when I saw them clearing out, he was going to go one-on-one. I just, honest to God, if I'd have been home, I would have thrown something. But I was in a public setting, so I couldn't, and I didn't. So where are you with Finch? I just am really disappointed.
No, I don't think there's any real heat that should be on Finch at all. I think this was a projected 33-win team that is pushing the second seed in the Western Conference deep into the playoffs. I think that they really responded in game 4. I think, after giving up a 26 and 25 point lead in game 3, and the way that they lost that game at home, I think the way that they responded in game 4 was huge. Obviously they gave up another, 13 point lead, another big lead in the fourth quarter last night, but I think we're likely going to see a strong response out of this team, a team that's going to push, like I said, the second seed, the second best record in the NBA to a 6-game series, regardless of how it goes. And I think those learning moments are going to be huge. I think Ant is going to stew on what happened at the end of game 5, and he's going to use that going forward to be a smarter, better player. And, I was on the show a week ago saying, like we talked about here, of all the learning moments of this being the series, the playoffs before they make a real big run. And I think those moments are still there. And the harder the losses, the more bitter they are, the more you feel like your heart was ripped out, the more it's going to benefit them going forward.
I agree with AJ here. And listen, I said this earlier in the year. I have faith in Finch and what he's done with his team. But to get back to what you're saying, I think the one thing I think, and Carla Bingham, Senator, we were tweeting back and forth at each other about this game the other night, and she just said that it's not to. It's just what I've said too, and we've all said this, is that they're missing one little piece from being clutch. That's what they're a good team, and they're proving that they can be, and they should be in the playoffs, and they are. But they're just not clutch yet, like consistently clutch, and they're missing one element. And I think they'll get that on the offseason. And I think once they pick that up, but I'm not done with this team. No, and my faith isn't shaken. Matter of fact, it's more resolve. Because these guys they've shown that they belong in the playoffs, and Memphis is again you're talking about a 2 seed against a 7 seed, and they're balling, man. They've already beat them at their place. They showed that they can beat them there. They're gonna come home. I think they're gonna win this game at home, and then Memphis is the one that's gonna have with their back against the wall, not the T-Wolves. No one expected them to be here. People laughed at them, but they're not. They're a good basketball team. And I honestly, I will say they're well coached.
Yeah. I feel like Finch at least improved a little bit. During the run, he actually called a timeout.
Yeah.
And it was, right before, we got the turnover, but yet and still, they were starting out on an 8-0 run, 10-0 run, and decided to call that timeout. I'm still with this squad. Like this year, compared to, I would say, a couple flashes in that Jimmy Butler season, It's the most excitement that's been around, and I feel like this series, no matter how it turns out, whether we lose game 6 or push it to game 7 in advance, I believe that we've gotten the respect of the league. We've got more respect. Like Minnesota's always just kind of been a punchline and just kind of like a skip over when it comes to national sports attention. But I feel like everybody's seeing the same team and seeing the same thing of like, hey, these guys got talent. And if they could just put it together, they can be a solid team. And they kind of leave it at that, not the little little digs that we would take. So I'm all right with Finch. And who else are we going to get, that's going to have something else on their resume? They'd be like, oh, well, I can get you into the second round. Like, we're going to be 5-6 points away if we lose from advancing to the second round. So, no, I'm still cool with the Wolves. And I'm glad that at least, these games that have been sucky and just losing it within the last minute or so, at least we're there, and at least they're not blowouts.
No, the effort and the way this team plays for each other is something that I've been so impressed with all season. I just guess I'm just, I'm disappointed in the sense that I just feel like, man, they shouldn't be where they are. They deserve better if they had played a little bit smarter. Ugh. Yeah, okay. So
learning curve, man.
Playing smarter. I know none of you guys are huge on the whole hockey thing, but the Wild made a move a couple weeks ago, and I endorse it. They acquired a goaltender because they had a chance to get a guy who's won a couple Stanley Cups, and the other team's paying half of his salary, and his salary comes off the books at the end of the year. You don't have to retain him. What I've seen of Marc-Andre Fleury, and it was not last night was not all his fault, but all I'm saying is, unless he does something like flips that switch that Jesse says he's going to win the playoff start, that dude will not be back with his team next year. He looks all of 34 or whatever he does. He's not Tom Brady so far. He's not giving this team what it is. And one thing we can't do, we can't lose to the freaking Arizona Coyotes, with home ice in the balance and 2 games still. And St. Louis lost last night, so we didn't lose any ground. But now you're not resting. This team will not be able to rest any of their starters going to their last 2 games. They're playing 2 playoff teams who don't really have anything to play for. They're already in, but they've got to win these next 2 games because hockey is different than all the other sports in the sense that if you have home ice, you get to make the last change, which means you get to dictate who plays against who. And that is tremendously important with St. Louis when they have 2 of their lines are really, really offensive and not so great defensive. And so you can kind of game, okay, I'm putting these guys against these guys. And in the most Minnesota thing ever, we drafted a guy who refused to come here and play for us because he said we were too deep at center, supposedly. We have freaking no centers. And, of course, he scores his first NHL goal last night against us after not coming here. We traded him to Arizona, So I'm like, if that isn't Minnesota, I don't know what is. So that's all my vitriol and poison for the Minnesota Wild. You guys got something you want to add? Go ahead.
My cousin sent me a screenshot of his ESPN app, and he had the Minnesota sports teams up, and it was about 9:05, and the Wolves were leading, and the Wild were up, and the Twins were up, and I just texted him back, and I said, "Shoes will drop," and I thought there might be one shoe that would drop. I didn't know that there were likely going to be all 3 at one point, and then obviously we talked about Sano and the kind of miraculous play that the Tigers gifted the Twins. But yeah, I mean, on the Wild, I mean, the Coyotes had lost, I think, was it 10 games in a row? And the Wild had been on a 10-game point streak. So it was one of those games that you thought was kind of in the bag, and you thought that they'd be able to get, home ice advantage with that. But like you said, I mean, the Blues also lost. So the Wild are still kind of in the inside track to get home ice. So it's not all lost for them with what happened last night.
Don't try to rationalize with Tim. It's just not how he works.
I know. I feel like Let's Play every day is just like a therapy session for Tim. Yeah, I feel like that's what this is. It's just like Tim sports therapy for a half hour.
Well, honestly, Andy, I'm listening to you talk. I'm thinking of Finch, and I'm just like, can I have Andy just give me a hug right now because I feel like he's helping me.
It is. It's true.
All right, so the Twins. And I'm bullish on the Twins. I really am excited about what their starting pitchers are doing. Even when the bullpen gives up a 3-run home run last night, they got out of it. They won. So yay. I'm excited to see what this team will do going forward, but it's still early, and I'm trying not to fire people in April because you guys told me not to do that last week. So good. Okay. NFL draft. All week I've been asking you guys to come prepared to talk about what you would do if you were the Vikings, but we got Andy here, and Andy's the beat writer for the Gopher football team, and so there are would you say 6 Gophers and 2 that have a chance? Unlike most people, I'll just say it, Andy, I don't think Mafe goes in the first round. He might. I don't think so. I think he drops to 2.
Yeah,
but anyway, if you would go ahead, handicap what you see coming out of the University of Minnesota and what this does for this program to have this type of recognition of player talent.
Yeah, I think there's probably 3, maybe 4 guys that get drafted. I think there's maybe 5 if you want to include Cole Keefe. But yeah, Boye Mafe is kind of a fringe first-round guy. I think that if he is able to go in the first round, be the first Gopher defender to be drafted in the first round since Willie Middlebrooks in 2001, and that'll be kind of an ending of another streak for this Gopher program. They had Rashad Bateman go in the first round last year. That was the first round pick for anybody that wore a Gophers jersey since Lawrence Maroney in 2006. Daniel Fa'alele is going to get drafted. Where I think is a bigger question. I think he's maybe a late second round, maybe even as low as a 5th round pick by kind of what I've heard and what I've seen out there on the mammoth offensive tackle for the Gophers. But that would be the first time that they would have an offensive lineman drafted in 16 years. So when you talk about kind of overall picture of the Gophers program and where it's going in relation to the NFL draft, they've been able to kind of end some real droughts with what they've done over the last couple of years, from Bateman to Boye goes in the first round, to Daniel Fa'alele getting drafted. There's a couple other guys that'll be late 3rd round kind of guys, like Asezio Tamiwu, a defensive end. Blaise Andries is probably a fringe draft pick, maybe a free agent type. Keefe, who I had trouble saying his name earlier, he's a tight end that maybe is a late 3rd round guy. Jack Gibbons is probably a free agent linebacker. So 4, 5, 6 guys that could get drafted here. I think they had 5 guys drafted in 2020. And that was a high for them in a number of years as well. So we're seeing, more Gophers get drafted. We're seeing Gophers get drafted higher, and that's been the theme over the last couple of years with PJ Fleck in this program.
So you guys, the way I've been putting this, and Willie's been through this twice already now, and he came yesterday with a different scenario than he did on Monday, which I appreciated. So what I've been asking you to do is to be Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, and you are the Minnesota Vikings general manager, and you have the 12th pick in the first round, and you wanted to trade up, you wanted to trade back, you wanted to do whatever, and it didn't happen. You're sitting there at 12. You don't have to shackle your ambition any more than that. In your opinion, what should the Vikings do with the 12th pick, and who is that dream player, whoever you would want to be there on the board? I guess maybe realistically speaking, I don't think we expect Hutchinson or Kayvon to be there, with that 12 pick. But anything else I think is sort of on the board, because for me, and I've been following the NFL draft since the 1970s, I do not remember ever one year where so many teams went into the draft with multiple draft picks in the first round and no clear-cut anything as far as position-wise. So you're on the clock, G2. You are the Vikings general manager. What are you doing with number 12?
I'm taking best athlete available.
Not going for a need one. So put 2 or 3 names. Do you want us to put 2 or 3 names?
I don't watch college. I don't. That's why I was going best quarterback available.
Best QB available for G2.
Or just get Cook's little brother.
Yeah.
Not in the first.
No, not in the first. Is there another Diggs around?
Yeah, is there any more Diggs? He liked it here so much. Andy, you're on the clock.
I think in a dream scenario, it'd be Sauce Gardner just on his nickname alone. He was such a lockdown corner for so long at Cincinnati, but I think he's way too proven to be there at 12. So I think he's probably off the board. I think in a dream scenario, it's maybe a little bit more realistic would be Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU. I mean, he was lights out after his freshman year, winning a national championship at LSU, but had 2 years interrupted by COVID and a kind of a fluky injury. But I think that guy is an absolute stud. It also fits a position in need at cornerback for the Vikings. So I'll go Derek Stingley Jr.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Yeah, it's funny.
Willie.
Yeah, well, so I started out with Malik, and I truly believe if he's available, I'm taking him. I truly believe we need a quarterback. We need a mobile quarterback. I also believe that we need defense, and we need a cornerback. And if we can't, those two guys are Stingley and even Gardner, the kid from Notre Dame,
The safety.
Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton.
Hamilton. I love him, but we need some help in that secondary, man. So, and if we can't, then let's go with. I did linebacker yesterday. I think yesterday I went with Devin Lloyd.
Yep.
From Utah, and then so today, if all those guys are not available, and if I'm picking, I'm going to go with and if Jermaine Johnson is still available, I'm going to take this edge rusher. I'm going to take this Jermaine Johnson, Florida State. This kid is dynamic. I mean, that's where we need help is on defense. We really do. That cornerback, I agree 100%. But like you said, those three guys are those defensive backs. They're really good, and Hamilton is probably the best athlete of all of them in terms of what he's capable of doing. But he's a safety. But if I had to choose, yeah, Sauce is my guy, man. That guy, he is Richard Sherman and Deion Sanders in one. So that's what I love about him. But if, like I said, if those guys aren't available, I would go with Jermaine Johnson. That would be if he's available in the 12th spot. Is that where we're at?
Yeah. The ESPN did a feature on Derek Stingley Jr. and they showed highlights of his grandfather, Daryl Stingley. And you guys are a little young for that, but he was obviously G2 of your dad's era. And Willie and I, Simon, Willie, I just want to admit, I vividly remember the hit from Tatum, and I am a big Raiders guy, and it was then too. And Tatum was one of my favorite players.
I was too,
right?
Mine too.
I guess what I'm saying is when ESPN showed all this, I didn't remember or know because New England wasn't that good at that time, and I guess I didn't see him enough. I didn't know he was as good as he was, like as good a receiver as he was. Did you know of him from the college ranks or where he was from? Because I don't know that off the top of my head.
I can't remember what college he came from, but I remember he was basically the Billy White Shoes Johnson of. He was that good. He was so talented. He was not afraid to go across the middle. He was not afraid to, run that curl route, man, which is, and turn and go upfield. He was really good. And that I remember watching that game though too, man. That was a hard game to watch, and that hit was it was devastating.
He had a few of those.
Yeah.
Tatum did.
Yeah. Back in the day, that's you could hit. There was no there was no flags being thrown. And I mean, you really had to do some egregious, like almost 10 yards out of bounds to get a flag. If your foot was on the sideline and one foot was in, you were still considered in back in the day. Now, it's you have to drag a guy to the ground not to get a flag these days. And Jack Tatum and Lester Hayes back in the day, man, they would double sauce you.
George Atkinson. Yeah. Skip Thomas. Yeah. They were real.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
So this draft, so Friday night, the Wild will be playing, the Timberwolves will be playing in the playoff game. The Twins will be playing. Where do you fall on this draft? Because I'm telling you right now, all those things will be going on. I will have multiple TVs going on, but the one thing that will never, ever be off is the NFL draft. Why am I so addicted to this?
Because I think it's the promise of the future, right? I think just the way they present it too is very digestible, right? It's like, hey, who is this guy? What are his attributes? What are his weaknesses? Where does he fit? Is this a reach? Is this, a steal? I just think the way that they kind of present it on TV just makes it appetizing to watch. And I think, obviously the NFL is the number one cash cow when it comes to sports, and this is kind of the future. Everyone loves to think about what the future might be for their team or who their college team is, and if their players off the college level are being taken as well.
G2, growing up in the house that you did with your dad, that was his job, and he was in that league. How much did that come home?
Not much.
Yeah.
not a whole lot. I kind of feel like, especially, around with him, there are a few X and O's stuff, but most of it was about the guy, about the player who's going to end up in this locker room. So I think that's kind of like, bled over. Like, I do feel like the draft is presented in a way for people who are fans, and then a little bit more kind of make you feel a bit more like an insider. And like Andy said, kind of like, oh, it'll give you hope for the future, and be like, all right, well, let's see what this guy has, or, just kind of give you your opportunity to play coach or play, the team president, director of football operations. So yeah, a lot of that stuff really didn't come home, but it was more about, all right, after they're drafted, let's see if this guy's a good guy. How he is in the locker room, how, interacts with his family and stuff like that. And that's kind of rubbed off. I would say rubbed off on me in a way where it's, for the most part, especially hometown teams, just look at the person as a guy first, and then a player second, and then his productivity third, unless it's Kirk. And then I have no problem talking trash. Or I'll give him his props every once in a while. There were 2 games where I was like, this game wasn't Kirk's fault.
Well, there was a few of those. Vikings giving up points at the end of the half and at the end of the games was quite a thing last year. That's for sure. So before we wrap it, I just Kwesi, what does he have to do to get his pick in on time? Where did we set the bar and our expectations for Kwesi and O'Donnell and this new Vikings staff regarding the draft? What do you want to see?
I want to see them. Look, I just want to see them make good choices, man. Good choices. That's what you know what this team needs. You know where you're hurting. Go after it. Whatever you need to do, get it done to get the fans excited about what you're doing. Don't just make a draft to draft and go, well, and when it's all said and done, we can trade or whatever. We can do whatever. No, make a draft to make a draft. Make a move to make a draft. I don't care what you do. Just make a good choice. And I just don't, I don't want us to keep going back. And every time we make a number 1 draft pick, we look at back and, like a Christian Ponder and go, why would we do that? I'm saying go after somebody that you really, really need. If there's a cornerback up there that you want, make the trade for it. Do what needs to be done to get it. So your fans will say, hey, okay, we're fired up now. We got the team that's willing to take a chance as opposed to just being conservative and wait for your turn to pick, and then pick somebody that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys on your storyboard. Here's who I'm gonna. Here's who's available. Here's what we're gonna take. We don't need them, but that's what we're gonna take. I want to pick the best. Like I said, pick the best player available during that time.
I think one thing that'll be curious to see is how much he does moving around on the draft board, right? Because obviously that's Rick Spielman's MO, is that he would trade down and gain more picks, and we'll see if Kwesi does that or not. He made a comment yesterday when he spoke to the media about no value of 7th round picks could equal what a 1st round pick can do, which seems like the most obvious statement possible, but I think it's telling in the sense of, hey, having more guys isn't more valuable than having high-end type talent, especially at premium type positions like cornerback, like offensive line, like edge rusher, those kinds of things. And then another thing that I'm curious to see is how much of what he does is kind of the analytics model that he is in this position for versus just like general scouting, eye test. How did these guys play on the field? How much of it is their kind of RAS score, and how much of it is, hey, this guy just produces on the field? Kind of seeing if there is a trend with how he picks players based on those kind of old school, new school models.
Right.
I'm really intrigued to see what they do. The whole thing of the Patriots, I think, gave everybody an illusion. The theory was that they didn't have to draft in the first round, that they would trade back and they would take guys in the second round and third round and say, okay, my B and C players will beat your A and D players. You'd get a first round pick in the first, but you wouldn't get anybody impact or as many impact players as they would as they load up over here. But let's face it, they were gaming the system because they had number 12. You know what I mean? He was able to do so many things that gave them an advantage. And I think a false sense of that would work. I think we've seen teams try to do that. And I really am intrigued to see how many teams try to just lay draft capital for next year, knowing that you got a quarterback coming out of Ohio State and a quarterback coming out of Alabama that could be generational quarterbacks, for 20 years if they keep their health and could lead.
And they're cheap. I'm sorry.
Spygate, Deflategate.
There was that.
Yeah. What I also want to see in the draft tomorrow night is the drama, right? I mean, the player that has to sit in the green room forever, the Laramie Tunzel, gas mask bong hit, like this is kind of the random stuff that you see on draft night that is the drama that I think makes sports so great. I want to see some of that.
Who was the quarterback that sat around that just kept slipping in the
Brady
draft?
Quinn.
Oh, that was so embarrassing.
Well, Notre Dame quarterbacks, don't touch.
Was it him?
Hands
Who was
off.
it one that went outside? They had to go out and get him and bring him back in. I think he left. I
think they invited him to go to like his own private room rather than the camera sit on him forever. Is what they did. It's kind of a mercy thing.
Did he slip to the second, or did he slip down in the first?
He was supposed to go first 5, and he was. I don't know if he went in the first or not, or just right away in the second round. Yeah, I can't recall.
Man,
exactly,
that was embarrassing, man. The camera kept coming to him every time somebody came up to the port. Then it was like the camera just go.
Yeah. Well, you guys knowing me now, seeing me at 59, take you back to when I was 19. Just imagine this: watching with a group of guys at a house in Duluth, watching the Minnesota Vikings on the clock with Marcus Allen on the board, your Heisman Trophy winner out of USC.
Don't you even go back to that, Tim. That was
and the Vikings with the Minnesota Vikings select running back Darren Nelson, Stanford. I'm like a 5-year-old. I literally launched myself face down into the carpet, and I'm like pounding the carpet. I could not freaking believe it. So I
wasn't even a Vikings fan at that point, and I was like, "What?"
People even talk about, them not getting the pick in on time, and I go right away, that's nothing. We passed on Marcus Allen for Darren Nelson, who played in the same conference. You couldn't figure out which one was the better player. Okay.
One was cheaper. That's what they were looking at.
And by the carpet, he was going to be faster. Marcus was too slow. Yeah. Was he?
By the way, Daryl played at Purdue. He's a Big Ten guy. Daryl Stingley.
Should have remembered. Yeah, I didn't know. I just thought, he's the guy who got hit by whatever. But man, they showed plenty of catches and plenty of plays by him where he was a real player. That's a shame. Yeah. All right, I appreciate all you guys. Andy, you working on anything special the next couple of days?
I'm doing something on the state of college football right now and how much BJ Fleck has to focus on things kind of off the field, from the transfer portal to NIL to having free agency in the postseason and the draft all going on at the same time, like he has to deal with every December, and how something needs to change in college football to make it a little bit more seamless and regimented, where there is freedom for athletes, but yet some sanity and some routines for coaches and the sport in general.
Needed for sure. G2, anything coming up we should know about?
Just some out of town work. So, unless you want to travel,
you'd be worth it.
I'll be back here in middle of May doing some shows.
Okay. So the next time we talk, and just real quick on the way out, do the Timberwolves, yes or no question, do the Timberwolves win in advance? Willie?
Yes.
Andy?
I'm sorry, what?
Do the Timberwolves win and advance?
I got distracted. The Timberwolves win game 6, lose game 7. Heartbreak continues.
G2.
Well, Kenny, listen, the Timberwolves is a dumb team. They athletic, but they dumb. You know what? Yeah, no, we're advancing, baby. Yeah.
Absolutely. We are. Absolutely.
Appreciate you guys. This is Let's Play Every Day. We encourage you to get off the bench, get in the game, because that's where the action is. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.